to try and set ourselves some sort of target. So today it's a generally good educational thing to one of the things they teach you in teacher training is that when you come in and you put on the board, as you come in, you put on the board the date, and you communicate to the students the targets, what you'd hope to achieve today. So let's try and do that as well. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this. That's okay, good. So today, it's Hashem. In terms of the sheets in front of you, the Marmakomas, so we are up to, we did have, it is true, unfortunately, mainly because of my voice, we did have a bit of a break, but we're kind of up to, I think we'll start again from 11, okay? We'll start again from 11, and I also have another handout for you, which I'm going to give you right now, so that we don't have to waste time doing it later. Bear with me. So you have this, you have one each of these, and we also have something else, which I'll explain a little bit later. It's a Shara Melech, which is also an important one of the Achronim. One of these, okay? Right, let's get stuck into it. So for the benefit of Kobe, maybe I'll do this. I will ask Sammy to provide a summary of. I know it's been a while, and just from what you recall, where do you think we're up to in terms of? First of all, sketch out the sugya in terms of what is the subject,
right?
And the see what you remember. I'll help you out. It's not a test.
So we started with Gemara sources that.
Just first sketch out the
scenario.
The topic. What is the noise the sugya?
Right. Someone comes into the community and says, I'm a convert. Like I was not. I'm Jewish.
Yeah, I think our main sugya has to be.
I'm Jewish.
Correct.
I'm Jewish. Right.
Correct. That is pretty much the main sugya now. Yeah.
Right. And then we discussed to believe him or not, and if so, why. And then we had sub-sugyas, which one of them was someone who was known to be not Jewish before, or says himself that he was not Jewish before. And then there were different opinions on that, and one of them was the Migo, that
Tam, that's right.
Right, that he could have also, we have to believe him, because if he came in and said, I'm Jewish, then we would have to believe him.
Yeah, very good. I think that's a very good summary. So pretty much in summary, it would appear to be, so far at least, the opinion pashtus of the majority of Rishonim, and now we're moving on from the Rishonim into the realm of Halacha L'Maisa. So we're now going to really start from the Tur all the way down to the modern poskim, and this really was, it's a very hot button topic. Because Emir Hashem, as Rabbanim in Kehilos, you will come across people who walk in and say, hi, I'm Jewish. Or they may say, hi, I'm a Kohen. Or hi, I'm a convert. Or hi, I'm divorced. Or I was married. Now, for the moment, I'm going to shelve kind of these other ones, because this is another topic which we are going to have to deal with at some point. We should, maybe not. Maybe we'll do something else in between. And that is the status of civil marriage. Mm-hmm. Because often people will, the reason it became topical is because, as you know, in the 1990s, mainly massive immigration from the former Soviet Union into Israel, into here in Germany. And this is really, it's one of the big issues that faces Botei Din around the world today. And it's one which, even in this relatively small kehillah, one deals with on a relatively regular basis. So this is just, you're not going to necessarily do it yourself, but you will be knowledgeable about the Yesodus, about so the status of civil marriage. Somebody says they're a Kohen, but the most common one, and we're dealing, really the topic of this Chabura at the moment is, how do we approach somebody who just walks in off the street and says, hi, I'm Jewish? In Lomdus, we're going to move on to Lomdus shortly, is, how do we categorize this? Is this considered a Dover Shebe'erva or not? Do you remember? Mm-hmm. We discussed this, and just very briefly, if it is considered to be a Dover Shebe'erva, then it needs Momoin and Dover Sheba Erevonit Shnayim al Pishnai Eidim Yokum Dover, and we learn a Gzeir Shava Dover Mimomin, right? That Aroyos and Aroyos Nefoshois and Momin require Shnei Eidim. Possibly for different reasons, but the question is, when somebody walks in off the street and says, I am Jewish, of course, it will have hashlachot, it will have impact on aroyos and on other things, but is it fundamentally a davar shebe'erva, or does it come under the allgemeine rubric of?
It was the meat.
Go on.
That if I forgot the name.
So just say, forget the Hebrew word.
Okay, so
what's the concept?
If you know that I'm keeping mitzvahs and everything, and you come to my place, and I say this meat is kosher, then you have to believe it's kosher.
What's that called? Do you know? Maybe I'll stop you off.
Eid
Echad. Yes, it's on the tip of your tongue. Very good. Eid Echad Ne'eman Be'isurim. There is a halacha, Eid Echad Ne'eman Be'isurim, which we learn. See if you remember. Who do we learn this from? Where do we learn this from?
From eating the oxtail.
You're thinking of the Sugim Psachim. According to, there are different pashtas.
From Nashim, no.
Very good.
Right.
Yes.
With the bdikas and
that the sofra la la'atzma pashtas. Other makoros, but that's fine. So we've set the tone. So we've seen many, if not most, Rishonim would appear to say a bit of a shayla in the Das or Rambam, two opinions of my Mishnah, we'll see. But Pashtus, most Rishonim would appear to say, it seems that if we don't know otherwise, and somebody just walks in off the street and says we're Jewish, we accept it. Okay? We're now going to begin today to delve into. We're moving on from the Rishonim, so to speak, to Halacha L'Maisa. So the first thing we have on our sheet here, source 11, is a Tur, who quotes the Ramah, Rabbinerseminar Abulafia. So the Tur quotes a Ramah, and he says as follows. This is Tur Evne, as a Simon base. Chen Kosovo Ramah, Upirish, the Hod, the Omakol, Hamishpochos, Bechezkes, Ksherois. If you look in the other sheet that I've given you, it's Shulchan Aruch, Evan Ha'ezer, Simon base, Seif base. Look at we passed in Shulchan Aruch, Kol HaMishpachos Bechezkas Ksherois. All Mishpachos have the default position, the status quo is that they are considered to be Ksherois. Look in the Be'er HaGoyla, what's the Makair? You always have to do that. Lashon HaRambam, Perikites, Milchas Yisur Rebiyah, Mememra de Rabbi Yochanan, Alibu de Chachomim Shom, Ayin Vavam and Beis. It's a Gemara. Okay? So, we have a general rule, Kol HaMishpachos Bechezkas Ksherois. Says, back to the Tur, source 11, says the Tur, but in the name of the Ramah, Ho da Oma Kol HaMishpachos Bechezkas Ksherois, Hainu, Man de Isle Chezkas Kashrus. He posits that this is so only if somebody has an independent Chezkas Kashrus, then Ein Tzorich Livdoi Kacharov. Avol Man de Isle Chezkas Kashrus. Somebody who doesn't have a cheskes kashrus, right? A family rocks up into town, to use the vernacular. A family shows up. We've never heard of them before. Sorech raya leyuchasin. The Ramah is machmir. No, don't confuse the Ramah with the Ramah. Rabbeinu Moshe Isserlis. This is two different hundreds of years apart, and the Torah is quoting the Ramah, so it's a Rishon. So the Ramah says when we say Kol HaMishpachos Bechezkes Ksherois, that is only if there exists an independent Chezkes Kashrus. But if we know nothing, Tzorich Raya Leyuchsin, Ve'ein Eid Echad Ne'emon, and Eid Echad is not Ne'emon, Afal Pi D'lo Yehuzaru Ksherois Milinosti L'Psulim. It is true, he concedes, even though we do not prevent Ksherois from marrying Psulim, Hanim El Psulei Kahuna. That's people apostle Kahuna, Aval Psulei Kahol. But somebody that might be ineligible to marry into Klal Yisrael, Sophic Mamzer, or Mamzer rather, I shouldn't say Sophic, Mamzer or whatever. In Bolisar Yisraelis, Loi Shav Kinon Ad Demaise Raya, we do not allow them to marry until they bring a proof. Adkam. Veli Nira, says the Tur, he argues with the Ramah. Veli Nira Delishna Dechol HaMishpachos Bechezkes Ksherois Einoi Mashma Kidevarav. Fascinating also the methodology, how and why he argues with the Ramah. He just says, just look at the Lashon. If you come across a statement in Chazal, which is, Kol ha-mishpachos b'chezkes ksheros. How do you read it? Do you read it? All mishpachos which have a chezkes kashrus are ksheros. No, he says. There is no indication that there is anything independent going on here at all. It's a statement. It's a blanket statement. It doesn't give any contingency, any conditions. Kol ha-mishpachos b'chezkes ksheros. That's how to read the Chazal. And on that basis, interestingly, he argues with the Ramah. He paskins lekula. Okay? It doesn't say, no, there's no mashmos anywhere in the text, the Eirah b'man de Islay Chazaka. V'Rabbeinu tam pirush, and he also buttresses. You familiar with that word? Sorry if my English ever gets a bit too out of whack. He supports, he provides support. He says, Rabbeinu tam, which we saw already, I'm not going to go over the Tosfos in Yevamos. Rabbeinu tam pirush ein bedika elo lekuna. Do you know when there is a concept of bedika? That's only lekuna, but stam, to marry into thing, fine, no problem. Okay, that is there's the Torah. Now now we're really getting into halacha Maisa. So the Torah arguing on the Ramah and saying somebody shows up and says they're Jewish. That's fine, no problem. Okay, let's have a look at the Bach very briefly. 12. So the Bach, as you know, I'm not going to go over it again. We did a mini session on the structure and the setup of the Torah of the Bach, which showed what it looks like. But the Bach. Rabbeinu Sirkis, who was the Rav in Brisk, he is on the side of the Torah. There are the two major commentaries are of course the Beis Yosef, right, Yosef Karo, which he later distilled into his Shulchan Aruch, and the other one is the Bach. Okay, says the Bach. Let's have a look quickly. Kain kosav atosos v'rosh u'mashet tzarech. Umashe kosav mashet tzarech eidos kain kosav atosos v'rosh b'shem Rabbeinu tam umashe ma de'ein machalkin ben Eretz Yisrael u'b'Oisen Hayom. And the question is as follows: do we draw a distinction between a situation where we know geographically, statistically, most people there are Jewish, and we're going to have to come back to this? What is the basis? Today we're not dealing with the Lomdus. Maybe tomorrow we'll start a little bit with the Lomdus. Okay, but Rabbeinu tam, who says that. He actually says that Roiv, most people that come in front of us, most people that claim to be Jewish are indeed Jewish. Is that limited to a specific time in history, to a specific location where we know the majority of the population are Jewish? This is not
isn't that the opinion of the Gemara that says that someone who says Ani Yehudi or Yehudiani?
So is it based on Ruba de Lesser Kamon? Are you familiar with the difference between Ruba de Issa Kamon and Ruba de Lesser Kamon? No? No. Okay, so that we'll have to shelve that. We'll come back to the Lomdus Hashem tomorrow. Okay? And we'll come back to the Gemara you're quoting. Quite right. Okay? So says the Bach, it's the Tosfos on the Rosh in the name of Rabbeinu Tam, Umashma, this is the Bach's own comment. The implication is, the Einon Machalkin ben Eretz Yisrael, we do not differentiate or distinguish between Eretz Yisrael, u'ba'isen hayomim shekulam hayu b'chezkes Yisrael, u'bein bizman hazesh ruban eino Yisrael. Does it matter that somebody shows up from Kharkiv, right, where most people in Kharkiv are not Jewish? There's no difference, says the Bach. It would appear from the way the Tosfos and the Rosh quote Rabbeinu Tam, makes absolutely no difference. De la'olam ne'emon af lahasiyoi liYisraelis b'kach kosav smag. He then quotes the smag of another very important Rishon, yes? Sefer Mitzvahs Gadol, the maisim b'chol yoyim she'orchim bo'im. This happens on a daily basis, says the smag. Guests show up. Ve'ein onu boidkin achreim. We don't check anything. V'shoisin onu imohem yayin. We drink wine with them. V'oichlin mishchitoson ad kam l'sheinei. And we drink wine with them. We eat from their shchita, and we let them. We're not boidik them at all. Aval Rambam. However, the Rambam chalek da'achshav tzorch lavi raya v'achkach yisi Yisraelis shema la'osu b'yuchsin. The Rambam, and we did see this already last week, 2 weeks ago, that the Rambam does admit that even though be'ikah hadin it would not be necessary, but today, because of the fact that many Rubam, Rove people are not Jewish, he says today, ma la'osu b'yuchsin. We are machmir. However, says the and v'kachas of Shulchan Aruch b'shmai, we'll see the Shulchan Aruch later. Shulchan Aruch quotes this Rambam, umiu noyagim lahokel lahaminoi. However, the Bach says basically we ignore the Rambam. The minig is to be mekel lahaminoi af lahasiya Yisraelis, even to allow somebody to marry a Jewish girl. Now the Efsha, he says, it could be that even the Rambam would agree to this. that when somebody shows up, even in a situation where most of the population are not Jewish, it could be the Rambam would agree. Why? Because Kol HaMishpachos, because he would acknowledge the other halachic dictum, the other halachic principle, that Kol HaMishpachos B'cheskes Ksheros, like we see in Evan Ezer Siman Beis. He's trying to put the two things together. So when did the Rambam say, when was he machmir, ma'ala osu b'yuchsin, says the Bach, V'lo yomar Rambam mele b'misha lohi karnuhu b'goy. He says that's only when there was no, what's the word I'm looking for in Hebrew, important word you need to know, a reyusa. Reish, Yud, Ayin, Vav, Tov, Aleph. You know what a reyusa means? When there is a defect, when you have a blank score, you have no reason to suppose it's a word you need to know, either write it down or remember it, or it's really a word, we're going to come back to it, it's a word you're going to need to know. There is a chazaka, right? A concept in halacha where there is a status quo of an item, of a person, of a mikveh, and then there is a chazaka with a reyusa. Yeah, there was a chazaka, but there's a question mark on it. Mm-hmm. It's called a reyusa from Lashon Ra, bad, something bad. It's a bit weak, there's a question mark, there's a niggling problem with it. So he says as follows, he said, when did the Rambam, the Bach wants to say achidush, when did the Rambam say that we're machmir and mala osu b'yuchsin? That's when somebody comes along and we know, give me a second, right, somebody, the Rambam says that ela b'mi shaloi hikarnuhu b'goy, somebody that we did not know independently that they were once upon a time not Jewish. Somebody shows up and says as follows, hi, my name is Chaim Yankel, my name used to be Petra Petrovich, or whatever, I was not Jewish, and I'm a Ger. So then, why do we believe him? We only believe him because he has a migu. Migu, he could have said, my name is Chaim Yankel, it always was Chaim Yankel, my father was Moshe Yankov, and right? He didn't, but he created a question mark by saying, once upon a time, I was not Jewish. Now I am Jewish. So we have a concept of migu, hapesha osahu, hapesha hetir, etc. Fine. In that case, says the Rambam, even though you have a migu, you know what? You made a problem, even though you do have a migu, we're going to be a bit machmir. But somebody who didn't have a chazaka with a reisa, he just walks into town and says, hi, I'm Chaim Yankel and I always was Chaim Yankel, then even the Rambam would be made. So what do we end up with? Just to summarize this little bach, yeah? So we end up with the bach. Let's summarize quickly. The Tur and the bach would appear to be paskening halacha l'maisa, that if somebody walks into town and says, hi, I am Jewish, and we have I was a goy, I became a ger, I am a Jewish, so the Tur and the bach are mekel. Okay? No further questions can be asked. Now we turn to the bash. Okay, the Beis Shmuel, as it's known. You've got it here in 13, but I want to, I photocopied it for you here, to make it a little bit easier. So look at this sheet. Look at this sheet, okay? And it's the top left-hand column. I wanted you to see it also in context, okay? So again, it's also worthwhile always, whenever possible. So here's the Shulchan Aruch. So this is the beginning of Even Ezer, okay? And let's learn the Shulchan Aruch. Kol ha-mishpachos, we saw it briefly before. Kol ha-mishpachos b'cheskes ksheros. All mishpachos are b'cheskes ksheros. Two ways to learn this. Remember, the Ramah learns only if they already have one, and the Torah and the Bach say, no. All mishpachos are b'cheskes ksheros. Umuta lisa mehem lechatchila. And you can go ahead and marry them, says the Shulchan Aruch. You know what? Let's learn this Shulchan Aruch, because anyway, it's an amazing Shulchan Aruch for a number of different reasons. Did we do this last time? I can't remember.
No, we didn't.
We didn't, okay. It's a good job you're sitting down. You're going to see some fascinating ideas here. If you see the Montagues and the Capulets.
No, we did that.
We did.
I thought
so. I'll do it quickly for Kobe. Yeah. So okay. So it's a fascinating thing. If you see two mishpachos that are always at war with each other, or or two Jews that are constantly, at war with each other, Oira Isa Mishpacha shehi ba'alas matzah umeriva tomid. Or if you see a family that is just a pain in the neck, there's a family that they're always fighting. They're always fighting with everybody. You know, when you have people, when you have somebody that they don't get on with one person or two people, okay, that can happen. Not everybody is best friends with everybody. But when you have one person or one family who fights with everybody, then it's them, obviously. But more than that, he says, or if you see somebody, says the Shulchan Aruch, who is always making a fight, in English we say picking a fight, and he has a chutzpah, has a lot of chutzpah. We're concerned that maybe they're not Jewish. And you should distance yourself from them. These are, because we are Rachmanim, Baishanim, Goim Lechasodim. That's what it means to be a Yid. We have it. We have Rachmanus. We have Busha. We have Gemilas Chesed. That's what it means. And then here he says the other thing. You may have come across this as a begrif, as a statement. Have you ever come across this? Kol hapoisel b'mumoy poisel. Yeah. Kol hapoisel. Anybody who is always being poisel other people, it's a sign that. It's actually, this is true psychologically, but here in this case, tomid, somebody who's always invalidating other people. He's no good, she's no good. Somebody who is constantly talking negatively about certain families or individuals, especially in this particular instance, they're saying that they're not good Jews. We turn the spotlight back on them. We say, and if he says that they are avodim, then maybe he is. I must admit, I until I was researching this, I have learned this once upon a time, but I'd forgotten that it was actually passing. Kol hapoisel b'mumay poisel is actually a seif in Shulchan Aruch. It's quite interesting. Somebody who is very cheeky, somebody who has no shame and just says anything to anybody. And he's cruel and he hates people. Maybe they're the Givonim, back to the story in Nach. Now, fine, says the Beis Shmuel. I really wanted to do that with you just because it's a fascinating seif. On that, the Beis Shmuel comments. So you see on the side of Even HaEzer, you have two main poskim, the commentators, the Chelkas V'Choikek and the Beis Shmuel. At least for most of Even HaEzer, I'm learning Gittin at the moment, and unfortunately the Chelkas V'Choikek died in the middle of writing his Perish. So, but for the moment, at the beginning of Even HaEzer, you've got plenty of Chelkas V'Choikek. But here we're learning the Beis Shmuel. Okay, 17th century. Says the Beis Shmuel. Batur Kosav B'Shem HaRamah. We've come across this already, right? Mm-hmm. Top left. Gimel, B'Chezkas Kashrus. The Tur passed into the name of the Ramah. Misha Ein Mishpachta Yidua Lanu Lo Yomrin On Shem B'Chezkas Ksheirus. We're worried. He's Machmir, right? V'Kach Kosav, third line. V'Kach Kosav Rava Magid B'Tiritz Rishon. The Rava Magid's Paskin seems to go along with the strict opinion of the Ramah, at least in one opinion, that Afar Rambam Svir Lekein. V'chein Mashma Barashi. The reason I'm bringing this is because the Ramah is not on his own. You have one pshat, at least in the Rava Magid, in the Rambam, and it seems like Rashi might hold like that as well. So it's not so poshet. However, the Toisus Varosh Varan Sviril Afilo Shein Mishain Mishpachta Yudu Alonu Loy Chashinon Shema Mamze Elon Inin Chashash Kahuna Tzorech Raya. Here is the main point I wanted to bring out of this Beis Shmuel. We here in this Chabura are dealing with the concept of Birur Yahadus generally. There's a whole separate sugya which is somebody a kohen or not? Mm-hmm. It says the Beis Shmuel. He says Tosfos Rosh and the Ran hold that they draw a line, a distinction between somebody who's claiming to be Jewish and Kahuna. Tosfos and the Rosh are Mekel and the Ran are Mekel, and they say even if we don't know somebody is Jewish at all, we're not worried that he's a Mamzer. We will be worried possibly that whether they're a Kohen or not. There you need a raya. The Beis Yosef will Bach Mechalkim bepirish Divrayim. The Beis Yosef and the Bach argue pshat in the Tosfos of the Ran and the Rosh. Ki yesh leim chashash kahuna, could be that it's chashash kahuna. And then he goes on and on and on. I just want to get to the bottom bit. Go down to the bottom, just before where it says Dalad at the beginning of the line, 4 lines above that, he asks a potential contradiction, a stira in the Mechaber. But this is all about kahuna. So what we end up with from the Beis Shmuel is the Beis Shmuel. It's not clear actually. The Achronim say it's not clear when we end up with at the end of the Beis Shmuel whether he's being machmir or not. Mm-hmm. But even so, it's definitely only legabe kahuna. But as far as just generally being a Yid is concerned, it would appear to be we go with the consensus, which is it's okay. You don't need to claim that you're a Jew. You don't need any independent thing. I want to bring one more. Which is not in the notes here. Look on the next sheet I gave you. It's from the Shar HaMelech, another one of the important Achronim. Here's the sheet. It looks like this. Go to the right-hand column. Ula Inyan Halacha. You can see it. You can see that there. Ula Inyan Halacha. The Shar HaMelech Paskins. Le Inyan Psulei Kahol Das Kol HaPoiskim Svira Lehu Dafilu Misha Eila Cheskes Mishpacha Kegen Shabam Eretz Rechoika Amrinon Kol HaMishpachas Becheskes Ksheres Einayindim Zulasi Das for Ramah. Except for the Ramah doesn't hold like this. And one opinion, which the Rav HaMaggid says, Udaloi Kaharav Bash Beishmul Ubesefer Beis Hillel Sheyichsu Svara Halazul Das Maron Vatur De Lesser. He says that the Beis Shmuel wants to try and say maybe we can somehow fit the Ramah in with the Mechaber lesser. He argues point blank. So let's move on. So where are we up to? So far, it's looking not too bad. Okay. Now we want to see the Aruch HaShulchan. Go to the 50. Now here we come to a really interesting chiddush of the Aruch HaShulchan. I don't want to give you too much. I don't want to be too much sidelined because I want to try and make a little bit more progress today. We want to make our way down at least to Rabbi Yosef on the next page, so we get into the modern day poskim a little bit. Suffice it to say, at some point you really need to do a little bit of research. Before the Mishnah Berurah came along, the sefer really that Rabbonim, certainly in the Litter, would use as the definitive anthology of paskening for a Rav, paskening halacha l'maisa before the Mishnah Berurah came along was without a doubt was the Aruch HaShulchan. Okay? And that's another whole story. I just wanted to mention that. Okay? Now, let's see a chiddush here in the Aruch HaShulchan. Fascinating chiddush. Source 15. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, V'chein nirli das Rashi v'harambam da'afal gav d'kol ha'mishpachas b'cheskes ksheres hein oimdim mikol mokim zehu b'mishpacha. You listen to this. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, an incredible chiddush. When Chazal say, when the Shulchan Aruch paskins kol ha'mishpachos b'cheskes ksheres, there's a really important word there. What's that word? Mishpucha. That's the word. That's the key word. A mishpacha. Forgive me for being a little bit. I'm reminded in the 1970s. Not that I remember this. I actually saw it somewhere, just stuck in my mind. Bank Leumi. I don't even know if they exist anymore. They're still around. Yeah, good. So Bank Leumi was very big at the time in personal banking in America. And their big campaign, their big advertising campaign, which I actually have seen copies of. And they said, with Bank Leumi, you're not just a customer, we are mishpacha. Mm-hmm. That was actually in English in America. It's playing on a very important word. The most important unit in Yiddishkeit, really, I suppose, is the mishpacha. There is a concept of mishpacha. A mishpacha has its own dynamic. It's its own entity. It has a baba, a zayda, it has parents, it has a mishpacha. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, when Chazal say, Kol HaMishpacha is b'cheskes ksheros, they didn't mean all individuals are b'cheskes ksheros, because they're not. A mishpacha arrives, that's a different story. A mishpacha has its own dynamic. At least a father, a mother, and some children. Usually it's a mishpacha. What would be the minimum? I don't know. But look at this. It's fascinating. Aruch HaShulchan. V'chein nirali, the Das Rashi v'Rambam, the afal gav the kol ha'mishpachas b'cheskes ksheros oimdos, mikol mokim zeh b'mishpacha, avol ish haba mi merchak. Somebody shows up in town from who knows where. V'roitza lisa ishon, just wants to marry a woman. Ein noisnin loy ad sheyivoda mihu ume'eza mishpachahu. When the Chazal say that there is an assumption that a person is a Jew, that's not as an individual. It's only when you present yourself within the context of this thing known as a Yiddish mishpucha, Mishpacha. Somebody shows up, a man, a woman, a few kids, whatever, an aunt, an uncle, a father-in-law, whatever, Mishpacha, whatever that is. But stam, somebody just shows up in town. Chazal never said anything. So this is very, very important. The Aruch HaShulchan is saying that if an individual shows up into town, we have to check. Who knows? And what do we check? We check. We play the game. What do? We play this Jewish game. Oh, Chaim Yankel from, 1 second. Yeah, he's your uncle. She married your brother, her sister-in-law. Okay, right now we know. Let's establish. It's fascinating. We all joke about mishpachology, right? Everyone makes a joke. It's not a joke. It could have real halachic significance. It's amazing.
Wow.
A Yiddish mishpacha is significant in halacha. Well, look at his lashon. Ad sheyivoda mihu ume'eza mishpachu shemahu mamzer apostle. The bishleim mishpacha muchzekes l'Yisrael mekbidah b'cheskes kashrus. Aval ish abom merchakim. Somebody just shows up at the Yadanu Oisoi. We never heard of him. Ein lo shum chazaka. He doesn't have a chazaka. How can you? A mishpacha has a chazaka. An individual doesn't have a chazaka. U'maturitz kushis hatoysos shomim Rashi ve'echod migdolei achronim. Kosa the Rambam Svile Gdei Akidemes v'chein Svile Rashi. To me she'en mishpacha yedu tzok lahavi edim. He quotes that's the Ramah. He quotes the opinion of the Ramah. V'liner akamesha kosavti. Again, he argues with the Ramah. He says, I believe, like I said, im yesh le mishpacha ein tzarech klal l'raya v'raya ein tzarech rak leish boideid shabomi marchakin. V'chein ledina pshita shesh lizoyer shaloi lehischatin beish ein yodu alonu. So here we're beginning to walk down. We're now into around about 1900. Yeah, just to give you some sort of timeline with the Aruch HaShulchan, give or take. Yeah. So this is how he's paskening. So now we have the following psak, an individual from the Aruch HaShulchan at least. Okay, we can get rid of the Ramah. We don't need to worry about the Ramah. You don't need an independent cheskes kashrus. But so we would now be mechalek. Depends. If a family shows up, we've come from Kiev, we've come from fine. Mishpacha, you're showing up as a mishpacha, no problem. Don't ask any questions. An individual, then we would ask questions. So far, so good. Mm-hmm. Now, the next source is a Be'er Heitev, and here, but again, I go back to the sheet I gave you, this sheet, because it's printed much better here, this one, and look at Be'er Heitev Sifkot and Dalet. Okay, so the Be'er Heitev under the Shulchan Aruch, yes, Be'er Heitev Sifkot and Dalet. Again, it's going on that Shulchan Aruch's Cheskes Kashrus. But Turkos and Shema Ramah. So we'll run through the first bit because the first bit we've already done. The Torah writes in the name of the Ramah, Misha'ein Mishpachta Yedulon Ulemin Shemecheskes Kashrus L'chen Yesh Lahach Mirbash Kachkos of Beis Hillel. Here's another one introducing another Achron, the Beis Hillel. Quite an important Achron. Misha Ba Me'eretz Acheres Hein Ish Oy Isha Oy Bochur Oy Besula Oy Alman Oy Almana Tzarech Raya Shehu Yisrael. Now he seems to be talking about individuals. Okay, so far so good with the Aruch HaShulchan, right? The Beis Hillel says somebody who shows up, a man, a woman, young, a boy, a girl, married, not married, they need a proof that they are Jewish. The Afsher min misnahagim kedas Yisrael, even though they keep Shabbos. They behave like a Jew, umedabrim bil sheinenu, and they speak in our language, which we're going to see. I don't know if we'll see it today. Which language is that? Any guesses? Yiddish. Reb Chaim Volozhiner talks about Yiddish. We can't leave that. Yeah. So they show up and they know. You give them an aliyah. They know what to say. They can talk the talk and walk the walk. They got the whole 9 yards. Yeah. Okay. V'yeduim v'yodim b'chol tivah Yehudim, and they know all about. We had a really interesting in Based-In last week. Really interesting. One of the candidates came before us. I can say because I don't know who you know, you don't know, but there was many candidates. We had a whole day. One of the candidates very possibly is Jewish. We just can't prove it, unfortunately. But they said that they remember their mother's mother making them eat matzah for a week every year. They kept nothing. They knew nothing, but they remember their grandmother making them eat matzah for a week every year. So that you will find, and the mother lit candles. Why? Because her mother told her to light candles. Friday night you light candles. Yeah, I remember even from Gibraltar we had a maid, a cleaner who had I don't think it was her, it was friends, where they had one of these little villages in southern Andalusia where a lot of people in the village had a custom. They were Catholic as far as they knew, but they had a custom. They would always light candles Friday night under a table. The entire village, somewhere in Andalusia, southern Spain, where they light candles under a table Friday night. They don't know why they do it. When she told us, I said, I know why you did it. I know why they do it. Yeah.
They were Jewish. They were forced to convert. Yeah.
Fascinating, hey?
Wow.
Anyway, so this person stood here in this room last week and said that their grandfather died in Majdanek as a young boy. He was taken to Majdanek. They had to quite try and question as a Polish political prisoner or as a Jew, but as a young boy killed in Majdanek. So very possibly they are Jewish, but there were no papers. They couldn't prove anything. They were brought up Christian. So we have to do a Giyur L'Chumra. Anyway,
right?
Yeah, we have to do a Giyur L'Chumra. But how did I get onto this? So we do. One of the questions you ask is, people, do they behave like Jews? Do they know anything about? So he says, he is now quoting the Beis Hillel. The Beis Hillel says that somebody who may know everything, speaks the lingo, knows everything, but afal pikein tzrichin raya. You need a raya, and here are the key words here, my friends. I would underline it or highlight it if I were you. V'chein hu takonos medinos lita.
Right.
There was a takona, he says, in Lithuania, she'ein lesader shum kiddushin, elo imkein sheyesh lo raya shehu Yisrael ume'ezeh mishpacha. There was a takona in the litter that you're not mesader kiddushin until you know that the person is definitely Jewish. Okay, that's the Beis Hillel. Now let's move on. Very interesting, no?
Yeah.
That's the Behetev source 17. Okay. It's a Shulchan Aruch here.
We have it here, no?
Yeah, you have. You've got it, Seif Gimel. Let's quickly go through this. So you can use this one. Mishpacha shekara oleho ar. There was an irum, a mishpacha where there were question marks were raised. Two Edom come along and say, in this mishpacha, there's monkey business going on here. There's a mamzer or a cholal is mixed in here. Avdus, and was eved, harezeh sofik. If it's a mishpacha kayanim, you can't marry until you check for a dalad imohis shehin ches imo ve'eim imo eim avi imo ve'imo. How far you have to check? Fascinating Shulchan Aruch. Okay, that is Seif Gimel. Okay, says Rabbi Yosef. Now here we get to Yabia Omer. Now this Rabbi Yosef, I have to find out what year he wrote this tshuva in. Because I actually have printed it out over here. I can give it to you separately. It doesn't write. I can give you here. So here is the whole tshuva. It's a long one. You're lucky. We're not going to learn the whole one. Don't worry. Kanai This is Rabbi Yosef's tshuva here. It's Chelik Even Ezer. So it's Chelik Zayin Simon Aleph. I'll read you out the introduction to the Hinei Ro'isi Lenochin Loden Be'inyan Ha'aliyah HaChadosh Mibris HaMayatzes. He's addressing the new wave of immigration from the former Soviet Union. Asher Zachinu Lo Ata B'Chazdei Hashem Yizbarach. So he says very nice flowery languages. They come out from the Iron Curtain, Mesach HaBarazel. They were there for more than 70 years under the Shilton Kommunisti, Achzar, etc., etc. And they come for tens of thousands. And he says, beautiful, the Posuk, this week's parasha, right? Hashem promises that towards the end of time, there will be kibbutz golios, and Yidden will come into Eretz Yisrael in all parts of the... So... He says, however, that he says, Yesh Makoir, of course, there is a reason to be concerned that many of those that are coming are not actually Jewish. And the reason they're coming is because think about it, if you are not Jewish, and you're living in Russia, and you're told that you can get a passport to a nice sunny country, and they'll start giving you it's a good, why not? There's a good reason. So therefore, then his whole shaila is this very shaila. In this specific modern circumstance, do we need to be proper Edim or not? Right. Remember, we saw the Machane Ephraim. I'll just throw this in. We saw the Machane Ephraim last time, who holds it to Dover Sheba Erva, not Pasha. He makes it a Machlokes Bavli Yerushalmi. Okay, that's again in the notes. Let's go to the bit that we want to take out. We only want to take out for today, and this is the last thing I think we'll do today. Baruch Hashem, I managed to. Hope you don't mind pushing too fast. It's okay.
No.
Trying to push ahead, make some progress. So we are going to learn the paragraph which starts V'anochi Haraya. Oh, that's the one that you have. V'anochi Haraya l'harav Beis Hillel. Now, this is the Beis Hillel that we just saw in the Be'er Heitev, right? The Medina, the Takana of Medina Slita. Says Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, V'anochi Haraya l'harav Beis Hillel be'evan ha'ezah al masha posak morana shulchan aruch sham. The Beis Hillel is brought by the Be'er Heitev on the Shulchan Aruch over there. Who says, Kol ha'mishpachos b'cheskes k'sheiros ein mutar lisnos mehem lechatchila. Shehei v'yimasher kosav ha'bach b'shem Rav HaMagid b'tiritz Rishon. He brings what the Bach brought in the name of the Rav HaMagid's first answer. She'af al pi shekol ha'mishpachos b'cheskes k'sheiros. That's only when they have a cheskes mishpacha. Because of all zeh habach, or the fi zeh habam eretz rochayk v'amashu Yisrael shenizgayer bebeis din or Yisrael meikaroi kimin she'ein lecheskes mishpacha tzarich raya. So the Bach says, on that basis, if we're going to follow that, like with the Ramah, yes, if you don't have a cheskes mishpacha, you need a raya. Maybe he's a goy or an eved. I'm running through it because we just saw it. Oh, I didn't see that last bit. Hold on a second. We don't have this in our Beis Hillel, but it seems the Beis Hillel, if I'm not mistaken, he's quoting the end of the Beis Hillel. V'chein ha'reisi halacha l'maisa be'ish ve'isha shebou me'eretz Moskava. Eretz Moskava, right? And he probably means Moscow, yeah? V'gozarti aleim sheyifrashu mizeh mizeh ad sheyavi raya shehem Yisraelim ad kan. That's how the Beis Hillel ends. He ends up with a story that he says there was a man and a woman came from the land of Moskava, presumably means they came from Moscow, and he made them separate until they could prove that they were Yisraelim. Va'ani toma al harav hanal azal. Says the Rabbi Ovadia Yosef about the Beis Hillel. I am Taima, I wonder, I don't agree with him at all. He didn't finish off the words of the Bach. That Bach that he quotes wasn't a pshat, it was a question on the Torah's understanding in the Rambam. But if you go to the end of the Bach on the basis of the words of the Rambam who wrote ומשפחה שקורא לעירור והוא שיעידו עליה שניים שנמצא במם זה יכול להיאבד זה לא ומוכח דמיירה בכהן שחששת לחלולס. If you look carefully you'll see there we're worried about kahuna. Alma אפילו כהן אין חשש לפתק מסומסות אלא בקורא לעירור. Even in the case of kahuna we're only worried when there is a reyasa, when there is a question mark. והילקח נראה לפי הנזדייתי שלוי כדברי רבינו הטור אלא הרמב"ם say שאפילו לכסיקונו אין צורך לבדוק משום שכל המשפחות בחזקת שיירסין ומה שלהית הרמב"ם בתרומה דיירייסה משום שהוא נותן. Okay, so he goes on and on and on, and that's וזה נראה לפי נסדייתי ברור. בקיצר, we've just taken out one little bit from Rabbi Ovadia Yosef where he clearly argues against the Beis Hillel. So let's summarize, we'll leave it here for today. We've made Baruch Hashem a little bit of progress, okay? Let's summarize for today. The summary is as follows. Always important to do a plenary just before you, summary. So what did we see? Let me just remind myself. We saw, we didn't do Rav Shlomo Kluger. I missed out. I do apologize. Somehow I missed out Rav Shlomo Kluger. Let's go back to 14. I'm sorry. I don't know how that got missed out. In between the Beis Shmuel and the Aruch HaShulchan, go to the Rav Shlomo Kluger. 14 וגם בגוף הדין מה שחייש הבש לחומרה הנה מן הוגנו באמס. Here we have the Reb Shlomo Kluger, one of the very important poskim. Yes, he says our minig be'emes is shekol ish ve'isha haboim lehinosei ein chikrin v'doishin acham mishpachisein klal ubal korchoch denehigen kahasovrim deloi chayshin on lahachi. We obviously follow the opinion. We're not worried. Ubefrat to have a kediyevet im nesaris lehinosei. The gamla koyin niradei lahachbe b'zeh. Came into sugi dalmalei nag came the ein medaktekin achashum mishpacha. Rak kol isha habali nase machzakin noisa becheskes ksheres li nase lekoyin v'chein nirli ledina. Even for kahuna, and he doesn't even make the chiluk that Aruch HaShulchan makes pashtas between a mishpacha and an individual. So to sum up, we do have, the Beis Shmuel is a bit unclear whether he is machmir, but even if he is, it would appear that he might only be machmir for kahuna, not generally for Yisrael. The Bach and the Tur, the Tosfos and the Ran and the Rosh seem to say very clearly that for just somebody who shows up and says, I'm Jewish, without any reisa, without I'm a gay or anything, you believe them. The Aruch HaShulchan says this Kol HaMishpachas B'Cheskes Ksheirus only applies to a mishpacha. The Be'er Heitev brings the Beis Hillel, who is machmir. He says that it's a takonin litter not to marry somebody without proof. And then finally, we have Shlomo Kluger who says you don't need any proof. And we have Rabbi Ovadia Yosef again, who seems to say you don't need proof. Again, this does not necessarily mean that we're going to apply this in every situation where there is, for example, a financial and economic incentive for a goy in Russia to say he's Jewish. That's a reisa, and we're not up to, so we're not finished yet. Okay, but we're making our way through it, and we've made some good progress. Shkaya.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.